Hi, I'm Mayor George Bray, and on today's episode of Crossroads for Growth, we're going to be talking to a local investor who has moved back to Paducah and chosen to invest in our community. Hi, everybody. On this episode of Crossroads for Growth, we're going to be talking with a local investor who has moved back to Paducah and has chosen to invest in the community. Investment in our community is the lifeblood of our community, and whenever someone who has been successful moves back to the community, this is always a really great thing for us. So, David, welcome to the show, and really appreciate you joining me today. And so I think we would like to kick off and learn a little bit more about you for the people that are watching out there. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, thanks, Bayard, and I appreciate spending time with you. And I'm a Paducah boy. I grew up in Paducah. My family was all reared here, and I still have lots of relatives in the area. And so after high school, I moved away to college and never came back for 40 years, I guess. And but even though I never physically came back and to live here full time, I was always back, because my mom and my parents were here,
right.
And my sisters. So I've coming back many times every year for 40 years. There's never been a year I haven't been back. So
you kind of saw the community a little bit.
So I know Paducah, and I've seen the evolution from when I was a kid to where we are now, and coming back to Paducah is really coming home.
Okay. So tell us about your business experience. What have you been doing all those years you were away?
Right, yeah, it was a little longer than a spring break project, but I studied IT, information technology, in college, and got a job as a computer programmer initially out of college, and you and I are in the same age group. They were just inventing the personal computer when we were getting out of college. And so the technology world was exciting. I worked for a management consulting firm that focused on implementing large-scale computer systems for over 30 years. And, in that 30 years, I got to see a lot about how businesses improve their business through technology and automation, and I got the opportunity to travel the world really to lots of different countries and visit lots of different types of organizations that were implementing big change programs. So that was a great career for me, and I did it for 30 years, lived all over the place. The last 20 years or so was in Florida. And I decided to retire, about 14 years ago from the consulting world, and then I got into public service, similar to you. And I worked for the governor in the state of Florida for the Department of Children and Families, and I ran that agency for him, and then ran several other projects during his administration. And started a nonprofit focusing on mentoring, counseling underprivileged college kids. And so, we did those activities. And then at the same time, that's when I started getting into entrepreneurial types of activities. I started a few IT companies. I started some real estate ventures, and started dabbling, I would say, in the startup world. And then we decided to move back to Kentucky, and then I'm now trying to do the same thing here.
So, what brought you back here? I know you're born and raised here, so you always, like you said, never left. But making that move back to this community, that's a big move. So, what brought you here?
Right. Yeah. Most people move from Kentucky to Florida, not from Florida to Kentucky. But my mom, got sick. She was older, and we had some other relatives that were getting in their last years. So I started spending a lot more time here, and and through that process, my wife's family's here too, and one day we sort of looked at each other and said, we just like it here, and this is a good life. And particularly, we've lived in a lot of big cities and sort of missed the Paducah lifestyle. So there wasn't anything really deeper than that, other than saying, well, let's start spending more time in Kentucky. And so occasionally we just started doing that. And then as I was doing that, I needed to have something to do too. So I intentionally started trying to unwind some of my businesses in Florida and looking for opportunities here.
So I know you've invested in several different things, but I think the most notable thing that people recognize is the building downtown, which has been aptly renamed the W Building, which is the building that Hooper's outdoor store is in. So tell us a little bit about that journey, if you would.
Yes, yeah, and it's been a fun journey, and hopefully, sure not anywhere close to being over. But when I was a kid, downtown was the place to go. So Saturday mornings, my dad and I would go downtown. That's where all the shopping was, the restaurants, the theaters. Everyone spent time downtown. So downtown Paducah as a thriving, fun place to be is just a great memory for me as a kid. And it was still very happening even when I was in high school. And it was sort of after that time, sort of late 70s, 80s is when, suburban flight sort of occurred and a lot of businesses moved out of downtown. And, I saw that happening over the years. And, every time I'd come home, we'd still go downtown, want to go walk on the riverfront and walk the Greenway Trail or whatever. And, spent time downtown. And I've lived in a lot of cities and traveled a lot, and I've just seen a lot of renaissance occurring in older cities. And, so when I look at downtown Paducah, I said, this is going to happen. Downtown Paducah is going to revitalize. And so, why not be on the front end of that process? And so, I started looking and literally just walking down Broadway, looking at the buildings and saying, would this be a fun place to, convert? And, I think I looked at every building downtown. And, the interesting story there is Craig and Vicki Sims invested in Hooper's, part of a Main Street program to move their business downtown. And we had known them really since childhood. And so when I was looking at buildings, I started talking to Vicki, and Craig had unfortunately passed. And, Craig's dream was also to, someday, convert that building into, some type of apartment complex. So it just seemed right that would be the building. Plus, I thought that was the coolest building down there on that block. So we bought that building, and with Vicki's cooperation, she was able to continue to run Hooper's at the same time that we, completely, raised the inside of that building and redesigned it into the apartments that we have now.
Yeah, you do have an eye for the better buildings downtown, so I'll give you that. That's for sure. So reinvesting in an older building, it's not for the faint of heart. So tell us a little bit about what you encountered and what kind of advice would you give people who are thinking about investing in an older building?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I heard that a lot too. And I had done a few development projects in Florida, and they were all sort of ground up building projects. And so I had never renovated an old building like this before. So I heard a lot of stories from a lot of people. And to be blunt, it wasn't as bad as everybody said it was going to be. And I think I did two really smart things. One is I immediately found somebody who understood historic preservation and the implications. So they educated me early on before I even started spending money. So I sort of understood what I needed to address, what I was sort of getting into, how much it would cost, those types of things. And a good plug for the city is the city was very involved early on, telling me, here's the issues you got to deal with when you're in a downtown environment. And we literally had meetings once again, before I even started designing the buildings. The city sat down with me and said, you got to do this, you got to do this, we're going to have to deal with this. We had to put a new water system in, we had to pull a whole new electrical system in, new sewer system. So all those things had to be done, but they got it all out in front, so I knew about it. I think the problem most people have getting in these older buildings is they don't think about those things until the problem hits, and then they go, oh yeah, okay, now we got to deal with this. And so knowing all those issues up front, then it's just putting it in a work plan and knocking it out. But downtown buildings is also fun because the buildings have so much history. I went to the McCracken County Library and actually looked up the history of my building, and I had to use those, what do you call those machines? The video microfiche machines. I didn't even know how to use it. I remember using them in high school, and going back looking at old articles, and the building had just magnificent history. It was a saloon back in the days when horses used to go up and down Broadway. It was department stores and mercantile stores. It was the USO headquarters, right at the end of the war. And so they had big dances there when the troops came home. And, a couple of more successful families ran their businesses out of that building. So, what's sort of neat about downtown is when you walk around downtown, you're kind of walking through history. Wherever you've been, there's been significant, lives that have changed and evolved from, their time in Paducah. So I just thought that was really exciting to understand that.
Yeah, that's very interesting, your perspective on it, and I think that what's really important to Paducah is that we attract investors, people that maybe don't know much about our community. Of course, you knew a lot about our community coming back and forth, but from an outsider standpoint, what is attractive about Paducah to an investor? Because you think about Nashville. I mean, Nashville's growing crazily right now, and so it's. I don't want to say it's easy to make money, but I mean, I think there's lots of good investments there, but investing in a community like Paducah is different. The growth is slower, but what is attractive to people looking at Paducah?
No, you're exactly right. I think the big cities is you can kind of make money fast, so you can put a building up or an investment up and probably turn it pretty quick, and that's probably not the business model in Paducah. So, but really I see Paducah, I mean, it's one of those last great frontiers of small town USAs that there's a lot of, opportunity to do renovations. I mean, I don't know if I've ever met somebody who's come to visit Paducah who doesn't go, wow, this is a really cool little town. Mm-hmm. Or wow, I had no idea that it had all of these things to do and interesting aspects to it. And so people always get a bit of a wow factor when they come. And so my perspective is there's so much opportunity here. It's a great early time investment to put money into downtown. And you probably can't flip it in 2 years and make a big return like you could in a big mega city, but there's no more small town USAs like Paducah. And so, once we really develop it and it becomes one of these great American small towns, the big investment opportunities will be gone then, or actually then they'll be coming in trying to do the flip. But, from that perspective, I think it's money well spent downtown. It's not like going out and investing in a subdivision, which may or may not happen, and someday the subdivision could turn. The downtown is always going to be the pulse of the city.
Yeah, so David, I mean, listen to you talk. I mean, and I've gotten to know you also personally, and I think you are a very savvy investor. I think you're, more savvy beyond your years, compared to a lot of folks. So you've gained that experience. maybe through the school of hard knocks, I don't know, but
Yeah,
but what would you tell a younger investor, someone who, one of the things the city is trying to do is try to get people interested in investing, buying a building, turning it around, turning it into something. There's a lot of talk about, you get off on a tangent here, there's a lot of talk about we need a grocery store, somewhere closer to downtown. We need this or we need that, but so that takes people who want to take risk, and who either have money or willing to borrow money in order to do that. But what would you tell a young investor?
Well, when you're a young investor, it's probably one of the best times to invest because you don't have as much to lose in some cases. But seriously, though, understanding sort of risk management at an early age when you're investing is important, because I think a lot of people don't understand the risks that they're managing, and they will start a project, and they'll get frustrated because something won't necessarily go right, and then they'll immediately try to pivot to something else versus sort of staying the course. And I think that's important. I look back, and I've made some major mistakes in investing and in business. I mean, I'm sure you have too.
Absolutely.
Right. And when we look back now, at our age, we go, those mistakes we made were our best learning opportunities of our life. But you don't know that when you're in there at the time, because you think it's the worst thing that's ever happened to you and your life's going to fall apart. But you learn from those mistakes, and then as you grow as an investor, you basically learn just don't run the same play again. If that didn't work, don't think that 5 years later that same play is going to work, because it didn't work back then. It's probably not going to work there. But I tell you, in my life, and I know this is the same thing in your life, is the people that I invested in when I was a younger person, in terms of either mentoring those people or becoming friendships with them, those relationships grow as you get older. And I still remember a lot of these guys I hung out with in my 20s. Now, at my age, they're running companies and have their own businesses, and so those relationships when you're younger are so critical to figure out how to build and nurture and never give up on them, because they're going to be there, forever. So you sort of as a younger investor, you got to talk to a lot of people, and you got to gather information. I would say the biggest mistake I see in too many young investors, and I was the exact same way, which was I thought I knew everything. And so I didn't need to talk to some old gray-haired guy about, how did he do it, because I thought I already knew. And so finding the mentors who will coach you, walk you through, what they did wrong or what they did right, and learning from those are critical. And looking back in my life, I think those mentors were critical, and that's something that I try to do. And I know that's something you try to do a lot of as well, right, in your business.
Yeah, so what I heard a little bit is relationships matter, throughout your life, and you never know when they're going to come back to help you at some point in time. So invest in those relationships. And I also heard don't be scared to make a mistake. I mean, be cautious, of course. Whenever it comes to money, you have to be cautious, but I like to say never up, never in. I mean, if you're not gonna try, you're never gonna be successful. So I think that's really good advice. And you're right. I do like to mentor younger folks and give them all the benefit of a lot of my life experiences when I have that opportunity to do that. So the city, your relationship with the city, or I think our relationship with the city is good. You're an investor in downtown. Downtown is so important to us. I like to say from time to time it's really our crown jewel. We have to invest in it. We have to protect it. But are there things that you see that the city could be doing differently or better because clearly, and I'm sure there's a lot probably, but clearly we're always needing to improve, and we're looking to improve, so I'd be interested in your perspective on that.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, being a small town, this city is very responsive. So, you know, in a big city, a big development comes along, the city probably doesn't even know you're doing the project, you know, except for permit paperwork going around and things like that. So in this town, you know, the city will be on top of what project you're doing, and that's good, as long as you figure out how to make them your partner, you know, and not think they're going to be an adversary. Because once again, in a small town, the city's going to know exactly what you're doing on your project the whole way. So you better get them involved, you know, up front. But, you know, I think the bigger issue to me is that, from the city perspective, is, you know, what can the city do to help promote downtown in other ways? You know, these festivals that we have are just magnificent. Downtown Paducah is designed for that model. And, you know, the more people we can get downtown, the more people can see what the availability of opportunities are, the more people want to live downtown. You know, we lived down there for quite a while when we first built our apartments, and I mean, we loved being, you know, downtown. It's just the energy, the simplicity, the diversity of you know, being down there. So, you know, the city's got to help us promote the marketplace, I think, a little bit more. So, you know, that's key. And then, you know, from an economic development perspective, you know, the city really needs to protect the big assets, and I think we're doing that. I mean, this riverfront project, you know, that you've got going, that's, you know, going to be critical, because now, you know, our riverfront's going to be as world class as any riverfront on a river in America, really, right? So, you know, that's critical. But some of the other infrastructure, you know, I see we don't really have it all figured out yet. The Columbia Theater, we've got a couple of, you know, the U.S. Bank building, or Citizens Bank when I was growing up, you know, is a building for sale now, and that's a great opportunity for, you know, a significant project. So, you know, I think we got to look at those kind of big landmark investments, and the city needs to be actively involved in helping developers figure those out, because the city can get too stretched if they're trying to help every little development that's going on in a significant way. But, you know, if we get a couple of those really big projects right, then, you know, we built the cornerstone for a great downtown.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the U.S. Bank building. I mean, you know, that's an important landmark for Paducah downtown, and the city knows that. And but it's going to take a really large investment. Yeah. The city is definitely willing to, in some way, shape, or form, participate, you know, in terms of trying to help make that happen. So, you know, we are aware of a few investor groups, you know, that have kicked the tires. I know there's things going on out there, so that's really a good example of a project the city really wants to make happen, and so. But I just want to thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate it. I think the people out there that will watch this will benefit from your experience, and hopefully maybe use that as a role model to perhaps make some investments in downtown. You know, we have a TIF district. Yeah. You know, we have a lot of activity downtown, and so we believe there's a lot of opportunity. So yeah, thank you again for being on today.
Oh, yeah, great.
This is Mayor George Bray, and I want to thank David Wilkins for being on today. Investors, people who have grown up here and gone on to be successful and then moved back to our community can be really key investors for our community. And I thank everybody for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode.